So welcome everyone to Psalms for Life, in which we explore Sefer Tehillim, the Book of Psalms, with insights from Rebbe Nachman of Breslov and the True Tzaddikim. We would like to thank Esther Elagorovich for sponsoring this series. May this series be a source of merit for her and her family, for everyone who attends this class, and for anyone who listens to it or watches it. Okay, so last week we had a brief introduction. We scratched the surface of Tikkun Haklali, Rebbe Nachman's universal remedy. And the reason we started that last week was because we wanted to begin Psalm 16, chapter 16 today. And that's the first psalm in the Tikkun Haklali. This psalm is said to be traditionally a segula that helps a person find a thief. Meaning, if something was missing, you know someone took it, it not only will help you find the object, it will help you find the person who took it. Okay. And in this psalm, we hear there's a lot going on. There's a lot on the surface and a lot underneath. On the surface, it's an absolutely beautiful expression of David HaMelech's humility, King David's humility. And this was a very special virtue of his. He was a great king. He was a tzaddik. He was a prophet. He composed Sefer Tehillim and redacted the parts he didn't actually compose. Yet he was incredibly humble. And as we read through the Sefer, what we see is that this humility, this feeling of nothing is owed to me, I'm not entitled to anything. This is a theme throughout Tehillim and especially in this psalm. Now, when Hashem told David that he was chosen to be king, David fell down on the ground. He prostrated himself and he cried out, I have done nothing worthy. Everything is entirely your doing, Hashem. Okay. Obviously, he's a role model for us to really cultivate that feeling is one of the goals of being a Jew. To cultivate this feeling, I'm owed nothing. And this, okay, a lot of text here as usual. This psalm begins with an unusual word. The first verse is Michtam LeDavid, a Michtam to David, Shamreni el ki chasisi vach, protect me, Hashem, because why? Because I have sought refuge in you. So I want to talk about this first verse. Michtam has several meanings. So the word michtam, says Rashi, refers to a musical instrument. And he also suggests that it's also representing the idea of a crown. So that when we say, protect me, Hashem, I take refuge in you, he was being surrounded with Hashem's protection like a crown. The Ibn Ezra says that Michtam is related to the word kesem, as in the verse Rosh Kesem Paz. His head is the finest gold. And therefore, this is hinting to the quality of this particular psalm. It's the finest gold. It's a especially fine psalm. We can't, they're all fine. But there's a special taste for this psalm because it is a pure example of David's faith, humility, and absolute connection and seeking an absolute connection to Hashem. Okay, the Talmud says Michtam is made up of two words. Mach means humble, okay, which we know is a theme here, and a tam is someone who's simple, innocent, pure, and wholesome. Now, in Rabbi Nachman's a discussion of this psalm, we find that the Zohar and Rabbi Nachman say that this mach and tam, okay, this idea of humility and simplicity, okay, is referring specifically to the wholesomeness of what? The bris, the Brit Milah and the bris, okay? And therefore, this psalm is alluding to the purity of the Jewish people, the sexual purity. And since, as we discussed last week, Tikkun Haklali, yes, it's a universal remedy, but it's also a very, very specific remedy for all kinds of immorality that this generation, the previous generation has been exposed to and unfortunately have experienced. And therefore, naturally, the first psalm in Tikkun Haklali is a psalm that starts us off on this track, alluding to the idea of humility and wholesomeness. Now, these two ideas are linked, okay, in that michtam, mach and tam, okay? They're linked because they go hand in hand. It's so interesting, but there is, according to the Zohar, according to other Sfarim, according to Rabbi Nachman, a profound link between, excuse me, I'm just going to adjust my camera. There's a profound link between the idea of humility and wholesomeness. Okay, the more wholesome a person is, the less chance that they are going to be arrogant. Okay, the more arrogant a person is, the greater the likelihood that immorality has been an issue in their lives. Okay, we know it's today's day and age, by the way, that it's just something that's pervasive. It's like a weed. Okay, now, we covered the term michtam. So the michtam of David is, protect me, Hashem, because I've taken refuge in you. And what I'd like to point out here, okay, David isn't saying, Hashem, I've taken refuge in you because you've protected me, because you protect me. No, he's saying, I protect me because I take refuge in you. This is hinting to us, it's showing us this idea that if we seek refuge in Hashem, he will protect us, okay? But we have to seek it. David speaks the words for us. This is we'll find this in other places as well. This idea of however we view our relationship with Hashem, whatever we act and ask of Hashem, that is what we get in return in large measure. So it's something to really think about, and it can help us if David HaMelech, if King David, who intended his words for the Jewish people and even for the world at large, to say these words with feeling, to say these words as if we generated them, we can have faith in this concept that he's letting us know, that King David's letting us know, that if we take refuge in Hashem, he will protect us. Okay, next. Let me read out the larger print. Okay. Amart ladonai, Adonai ata tovasi bal alecha. Okay. You have said to Hashem, you are my master, my Adonai. Okay. You are my master, Hashem. And you have no obligation to benefit me. Okay. Now, this is really an interesting concept for us that really dovetails nicely with this concept of humility, with this concept of seeking refuge in Hashem, which today We look around at the insanity in the world and the misdirection. People are saying, oh, look over here while something really bad is going on over there. We don't know where to look. Therefore, since we really don't know where to look, let's look towards Hashem. However, what we have to understand is this idea that David is telling us, King David is telling us, Hashem, you're my master, you're my Lord. And you have no obligation to me, okay? And he's saying, it's quite interesting. He's saying this, essentially he's speaking to his neshama, say the commentators. So he's reminding himself, again, this whole theme of this psalm. We know that David lived in his life. He lived his entire life in service of Hashem. It's not a question. Yet, Hashem, you're not obligated to me. You don't owe me anything. You give me my breath. You don't even owe me my breath. This, again, is that concept to lose this idea of entitlement and to gain this idea of humility and absolute trust that Hashem is going to take care of us. Because why? He loves us, and because we seek him and love him as well. Okay, it's this reciprocal relationship. Okay, let's see a little bit more here. Okay, next, David continues. Li kadoshim asher ba'aretz hema va'adirei kol cheftzi bam. But, or rather, for the sake of the kadoshim, the holy ones who are interred in the earth, okay, and for the mighty ones, that's because of them that all my desires should be fulfilled. So what's going on here? So David's saying, you don't owe me anything, but think about the tzaddikim who are interred in the earth, the tzaddikim who are buried, the tzaddikim who now their bodies are in the earth, but their neshamas are free, and free to petition Hashem, free to do spiritual feats that they can't do when they're in their bodies. But more than that, David's saying they were so holy in their lifetimes that please help me for their merit. Okay, so David is speaking about this idea of the tzaddikim. This is an idea that is a essential Jewish concept in the Torah. Right now, we're learning a lot about Moshe Rabbeinu. We're in Vayakhel, Pekudei next week, which is the Chazak, the last book the last chapter in the book of Shemos, the last parsha. And what we're doing is we are discussing, as we go along in the parshas, Moshe Rabbeinu's relationship to the Jewish people. He was a tzaddik, okay? David, we can rest assured, is referring to him. He's referring to Yosef HaTzadik. He's referring to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He's referring to all the 12 tribes. He's referring to the tzaddikim. He's saying, don't give me any credit, Hashem. Do this for the sake of the tzaddikim. This is a time-honored formula. It's such a time-honored formula that in Shmona Esrei, we evoke the schus, the schuyos, actually the merits of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in the first paragraph when we daven. Okay, so I have to sign someone in here. Okay, so this idea of evoking the merits of the tzaddikim is a thread throughout this psalm as well. Could you imagine? It's hard to imagine David's modesty, his humility. He was a tzaddik. Let me tell you, David also knew he was a tzaddik. Yet, even though he knew he was a tzaddik, he claimed nothing for himself. He didn't demand anything for being a tzaddik. It's quite a lesson in humility. Okay, we always think of Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the humblest person who ever existed, but all our tzaddikim have this quality. So Rebbe Nachman tells us that when a person visits the grave of a tzaddik, because we're speaking here about the tzaddikim buried in the earth, Hashem grants him a favor, even if he doesn't deserve it. Why? Because it's in the merit of the tzaddik. So we spoke last week, and we'll speak again about going to Kivrei Tzaddikim, the grave sites of the Tzaddikim. Rebbe Nachman of Breslov obviously is foremost in my mind in this course. And the experience that we have there. In America, we also have Tzaddikim, but it's good to go to Israel and Europe to daven by the great Tzaddikim. And when we go, people see true miracles, story after story of miracles, whether they deserved the bracha they sought, the blessing they sought, or not. So if you have the opportunity, and even if you don't, daven, pray for the opportunity to go claim the merit that is yours as your birthright. Your birthright is you get to invoke the merit of the tzaddikim, of the true tzaddikim. So don't neglect that. Hopefully this year, I don't know what's going to be with Ukraine, but hopefully this year we'll be able to go and do another woman's trip to Ukraine. It has been too long, 2 summers where we have not been able to do a trip. If we do, I hope you'll join me. I won't be going unless it's safe. Okay, so don't worry about that. All right, now, the implication for this verse says Reb Nosson, who was Rebbe Nachman's leading student and scribe and great rabbi in his own right. He says, because of the extensive spiritual damage that we have done, or that we have even brushed up against because of the times we live in, we really have nothing on which to rely, except for visiting the graves of the tzaddikim, invoking their merits. So he reminds us to do that, to go, not to neglect to go. Okay, now we're going to continue. Let me get my larger text. Okay. Yirbu atzavosam acher maharu balasich miskehem midam uval esar eshmosam asfasai. Okay, so multiply will their sorrows of those people. Who are those? Those people who rush. He's speaking about, David's speaking about here, people who rush after idols, other gods, okay? And I am not going to pour their offerings of blood, and I won't carry their names upon my lips. It is a mitzvah to not mention the name of an idolatrous god, okay? This includes the world's largest religions and their gods. And sometimes people say names. Sometimes you have to say a name if you want to talk to somebody about this so they know what you're talking about. But in general, Rebbe Nachman says, and all the tzaddikim say, don't let their names come out of your mouth, because our speech reinforces and helps to create a reality. And if we have to say their names, that means we have to think about them. Even for a second, it can leave an impression on our minds. So better not to say these names at all. Better to avoid it. Better to avoid listening to it. Okay, everybody knows the idols and the gods that I'm talking about. There's several of them. Speaking about the one that's predominant in America, from this idea of this three-pronged god, three-pronged idol, the one that's prominent in the East, there's 2 prominent in the East, and so on. Okay, better not to mention them. Okay, instead, says King David, okay, instead, Adonai minas chalki v'chosi ata tomich gorali. Hashem is my given portion, my allotted portion. V'chosi, chos can mean a cup, but it can also mean, as it's used here, my share. Okay, you guide my destiny. You guide my goral, my lot. Okay, Hashem. So I actually read a story that the Vilna Gaon said to the Maggid of Dubno, okay, who I don't know who that is, but I know who the Vilna Gaon is. He said that the way to approach this idea of our portion in our cup is to view a big cup in the middle and a lot of little cups around. And he said, the Vilna Gaon said, that if you pour wine into the big cup, it will overflow into the little cups. However, if you lift up that cup of wine and pour a little bit into each cup, you'll end up with an empty big cup. So what is he referring to? This concept of that we have to view ourselves as having a portion, as being that wine cup, each of us. We have to keep pouring into ourselves without dispensing necessarily until we're overflowing. The more Torah you learn, the more spirituality you engage in, whatever those mitzvahs are, the more self-development, the more work you do on yourself, that will overflow to the people in your life, to your children, to your families, to your friends, to your coworkers. For each of us, we're all overflowing onto each other, hopefully, and inspiring each other. Better that than to seek to just pour yourself out. Keep taking in, okay? The greatest teacher has to have a teacher. Okay. Hold on. I see somebody needs to be admitted, even though it's almost the end of class. Hopefully I admitted her. Okay. So that's this idea of our portion. Okay. And what David HaMelech is saying here is that those idols that aren't going to come across my lips, they have nothing to do with me. You're my portion, Hashem. You're my overflowing cup. And I'm going to speak about that a little bit more, but I think I'm going to stop here and reference one more thing. This idea of what is wealth. What is wealth is what David HaMelech just said. You're my portion, Hashem. When you recognize that everything is from Hashem and that the portion that you have, the literal material portion you have, is exactly what you need to serve Hashem, that is true wealth. So that's true spiritual wealth, and it's true material wealth as well. Okay. Sometimes we think we see a lack. We all have lacks. I'm not going to deny that we have lacks, but we see a lack. But if we retreat from that point of view and we turn our heads ever so slightly this way, and we look instead to this idea of, wow, this is what Hashem gives me, and this is what Hashem gives me, and this is what Hashem gives me, then that lack doesn't necessarily press down upon us. David HaMelech is saying here, I don't need the idols of the world. He was speaking about literal idols, but he's also speaking about the idols that have been common throughout the centuries, the worship of things other than Hashem, status, fame, power, money, and so on. All that stuff. David saying, I don't need that. You are my portion. I choose you. Just the way David said in the beginning, you are my refuge. I choose you. Okay. I choose you, Hashem. You know, I choose you, and I choose those tzaddikim who you sent to help us, the ones interred in the earth. I choose them as well. Okay, we'll continue. Next. Okay. Chavali nafluli banamim af nachalas shafra alai. Okay. Portions or allocations have fallen to me in beautiful places. Even in the inheritance is beautiful to me. I'm going to continue. Avarach es Adonai, asher ya'atzni af leilos yisruni chil yosai. I will bless Hashem, who has advised me, and also in the nights I am advised by my own intellect. Now, what he's saying here is he's blessing Hashem for giving him advice. And in the night, his own advice, it's a question whether this means his own advice. It's actually referring to his kidneys. Is it worthwhile advice or not? Why is it alluding to the night? We know that at night, David HaMelech made Hitbodedut. That was his time for making Hitbodedut. As a matter of fact, this psalm and other psalms are the product of that Hitbodedut because prophecy came to him. And it is said that at Chatzot, halachic midnight, he had a harp hanging above his bed. And the wind would blow, a prophetic wind, obviously, because it blew halachic midnight every night. The harp would emit beautiful tinkling sounds, and David would wake up and begin to have this conversation with Hashem. He would praise Hashem. He would thank Hashem. He would express his own humility and his remorse and regrets to Hashem. He would make petitions of Hashem, and he would compose, maybe isn't the right word, he would receive the Psalms. Okay, he would receive these beautiful, beautiful words, which came along with music. Which did he do first, the music or the words, the lyrics? I don't know. But we don't want to forget that aspect of Psalms, this aspect of music, because music is a bechina of prophecy. It's a similar concept. It's an aspect of prophecy. It's related to prophecy. So something amazing was going on in David HaMelech's Chatzos. He also made Tikkun Chatzot also, which used to be in every single siddur, and then it fell out of favor. Today you can find it usually in a Breslov siddur and maybe some other Hasidic siddurim. Tikkun Chatzot is the rectification, the Midnight Lament, or the Midnight Rectification, in which we mourn for the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, and we join our own sorrows to those prayers. And when we do, our own sorrows are answered because we're feeling the Shekhinah's pain. Today, people do make Tikkun Chatzot. Many people in Breslov, many men mostly say it every night, but women do as well. I don't say it every night. I say it when I'm able to get enough sleep. Some have accustomed to say once a week, some once a month, but it's a really beautiful, beautiful prayer. And even if you can't get up for halachic midnight to say it, read the prayer through sometime. Read the prayers through. It's very beautiful. Okay, we're going to continue because we are moving on, and I don't want to. Let me try this text here. Okay, now we're going to get to a very famous verse, and I have been saying Hashem's name. I always say I'm not going to say Hashem's name, and I did it anyway, so I'll just continue. Shavisi Adonai Lignegdi Samid Kimi Mini Bal Emot. This verse is extremely oft-quoted. People are said to have this on their lips. Shavisi Hashem, or Shaviti in modern Hebrew. I have placed Shaviti, Hashem, before me always. Because he's at my right hand, I won't falter. Again, it's the re-emphasis of this theme about this is what I do in my relationship with Hashem. I seek refuge in Hashem. And I tell Hashem that. David HaMelech is saying, I place Hashem in front of me always. And because he's at my right hand, because he's right there for me, I will not fail. I will not falter. Okay, what does it mean, Shavisi Hashem? It means this idea, what placing Hashem before us means that before we do anything, before we make a decision, before we pick up the phone, before we have a meeting, before we daven, we give ourselves a little self-talk and we ask Hashem as well. Chaya Rivka, I need to place Hashem in front of me. Hashem, I'm reminding myself that you are always in front of me. Everything I do, I place you in front of me. Whenever I have moments of anxiety or fear, it's always because I didn't think about Hashem. Okay, I'm sharing that with you. Might work for you. Okay, so whenever I fall into my ruminations, negative ruminations, which everybody does from time to time, I go, oh, what am I doing? Shavisi Hashem. Okay, that's the answer. I encourage you to memorize that verse. Okay. Lachen samach libi v'yagel kivodi af b'sari yishkon levetach. Therefore, my heart rejoices, and my soul is lifted up, it's elated, and my flesh too relaxes in confidence. My worries go away. Okay, I place Hashem before me, and my heart is happy. My soul is uplifted, and my flesh, my very human flesh and failings and fears and anxieties and worries and angers and jealousies and all that nonsense, it's calm, it's all relaxed, it's all gone, because I only am looking at Hashem. Okay. Ki lo sa'azov nafshi l'shol lo siten chastecha liros shachas. Okay, because you are not going to abandon my soul to the lower world, nor will you allow me, your faithful one, your devout person, to see destruction. Okay. Todieni orachayim sova semachos es panechan imos b'minacha netzach. You're going to show to me, you're going to reveal to me the path to life, Hashem. I know you're going to reveal it to me, the fullness of joy, which is in your presence. That's the full, complete joy. And in that, there's delight in your right hand forever and ever. What is Hashem's right hand? It's chesed. It's giving, and it's eternal. All of Hashem is eternal, obviously. So there's this idea of fullness of joy, complete happiness. Complete happiness without Hashem in the picture isn't attainable. We can have momentary pleasure, momentary giddiness, momentary happiness. We can even have some measure of sustained joy and happiness. It's true. And it can be even good happiness, like the delight in grandchildren, or the pleasure of giving someone a gift, and so on, or doing a mitzvah. But we have to keep in mind that it's Hashem that's going to allow us to have this complete, absolute happiness, perfect for the month of Adar. Okay, now let me see if there are any questions. Okay, it is main power and evoke. Okay, we will talk about that. That's a why do we say the names of evil people? Okay, so that's actually a good question. Very, very briefly, Rachel asked a good question. So an evil person is not necessarily an idol. Okay, so certainly we're not worshiping them, and we do have to identify them. But we often say, Yimach Shemo, may their name be wiped out afterwards. Okay, with an idol is a different order of seriousness in terms of saying it. Okay, can I post the Tikkun Chatzot? I don't think I have it on my computer. However, please Google it. Maybe it's on the Breslov Research site. It's in the Breslov.org. Maybe it's in the Breslov Siddur. It's probably in Sefaria.org. You might want to try spelling it two ways, the way you have it, Tamar, as well as with a CH. Okay. Please share with us how to find words, prayers to speak to Hashem when placing before us in the writings of Rebbe Nachman and Rebbe Nassim. That's a big topic. The simple advice is to speak to Hashem from the heart with whatever's on your mind. And if you don't know where to begin, and this is important, if you don't know where to begin, you can just say, Hashem, over and over again. As Rebbe Nachman said, you could say, Ribbono Shalom, Master of the Universe, again and again and again, until your heart opens up and your mouth opens up. I often say, Hashem, please open my heart, or Hashem, please open my mouth. I ask Hashem to help me talk to him. We are told Many Sfarim, not just Breslov, but Breslov specifically, but other Sfarim as well, that when we have a conversation with Hashem in Hitbodedut, okay, when we talk to Hashem, and that doesn't necessarily mean that whole hour of Hitbodedut. It could mean sometimes we only are going to talk to him for a moment. When we do, though, with concentration, okay, and we're really articulating our inner truth and our yearning for connection with him, we enter into a mild state of Ruach HaKodesh, possibly, not always, a minor prophecy in which Hashem will place the words to say in your mouth so that you will be able to express yourself. So it's a very symbiotic relationship. Okay. I hope that's helpful. Yes, to make it your own words. Just ask Hashem, help me make my own words. You know, it's your words that count here. The sitter also we have to daven from, but that's not our own words. Both are important. They're two sides of the coin. Okay, so I love this particular psalm. We could have gone on a while longer, but we covered it. Okay, and I'm very happy to have done so. And what I would like to do now is to remind you that we are going to say now, well, first let me sign out. Okay. Let me just pause so we don't record this part.